He becomes aroused when someone crushes invertebrate animals under their feet. Redditors, what is your Tinder horror story? Met girl, she was quite vocal about no hookups. We went out, got drunk, she used the line "wanna come back to mine and put your penis in my vagina?" So I did. Just as we started she said, "Oh, I love you, do you love me too?" I didn't reply, I just thought concentrate. It was a good night, but then she got really demanding and argumentative. It takes me a while to get used to starting to see someone. I like to get to know them a bit. She was talking about kids within a day of meeting me and I wasn't quite ready for the conversation. Then she got really shitty that I wasn't as committed as her, called me all sorts of names and said that I shouldn't be on Tinder if I wasn't going to take our relationship seriously. It was a whirlwind. It felt like a year's worth of emotion bundled into about 3 days. I deactivated my account and stuck with masturbation. The only Tinder date I went on, the woman told me her goal was to get pregnant in the next few months. I noped right out of there. Probably not as bad as some of the others I read on here, but I thought I was really hitting it off with the guy I met on Tinder. Until a few dates later, when he broke down crying in the middle of a heated makeout session telling me he thought he might be gay. I needed a date to pass over dinner with my friends. He wore a vest and a newsboy hat, then introduced himself with a bow and a hat flourish. The night only got worse from there. He refused to eat any of the food because things on the plate were touching. It was fucking soup, and wouldn't shut his mouth during the 12 minutes of Seder. When it came time for his train home he purposely missed it so he could stay the night. Haha nope. After a movie with uncomfortable levels of hover boob, I convinced my friend to come with me to drive him to the nearest train station. During the ride he thought was the best time to tell me he was schizophrenic but didn't take medicine because it was the devil. He tried to hold my hands saying that they were small and made him feel like a pedophile. The night ended with him telling me he was going to shit on the subway and write my name in it. There was no second date. I met a guy on Tinder, seemed nice, fairly attractive, seemed a little vanilla. Actually he didn't drink or smoke, wanted to be a meteorologist, was super close with his grandfather, gentlemanly and family oriented. Went to Starbucks and talked for a couple hours, it was nice. So, I set up another date. We went for ice cream and again talked for a while. We were sitting outside and I mentioned something about how guys have obvious body parts to be attracted to on women while girls pick out odd things like calves and such. He gets real weird and says, "I don't know if I should tell you this," so of course I prod him until he tells me so. First he says he's got a foot fetish. That's not super strange and I'm mostly curious so I ask him tons of questions about it. He'd never been in a serious relationship so I asked him if he could handle being with a girl who wasn't into it, at least long enough to feel love towards him, and he said no. I've called a girl from back pages a couple times cause I couldn't take it anymore, still not that weird. Then he asks if I have ever heard of a crush fetish. He tells me not to Google it because it'll freak me out. Still haven't, never will. There are 2 levels of a crush fetish. 1 Latvian lats. Becoming aroused watching someone crush invertebrate animals under their feet, like bugs, which was his fetish, and 2 Latvian Lati, watching someone crush vertebrate animals like bunnies or kittens. This got me thinking about our previous date. We had a conversation on the first date about how I had been getting a lot more bugs in my room that summer and so I'd been like squishing bugs all fucking day, and he said that really got him going. I also realized he had asked me what kind of shoes I typically wear and I had just brushed it off and answered him. I was wearing moccasins and, being a pretty open person, told him how they make my feet smelly so I try to avoid them. He told me that I got really turned on when you said that. "I'd love to smell your shoes if you'd let me," among other very forward, very specific and unwelcome statements about what turned him on about me. Best part, I told him a week or so later I'd met someone and that we should end our communications. He texted me a few months later 4 or 5 times asking me for my help and that he'd pay me to let him do stuff with my feet. I messaged a cute blonde girl one day, got a response, and after a while of back and forth making each other laugh and getting along, I mentioned I'm in a wheelchair, and suddenly she was losing her fucking mind talking about our future and how she wants to explore places like Australia and I wouldn't be able to do that with her because of my wheelchair. I let her go on for a while to see if she'd ever bring it around to a normal person thought process, but it never happened. She lost her fucking mind. I've been on quite a few Tinder dates. Most are pretty standard: dinner, drinks, occasional bang, etc. This isn't really a horror story, just the one that sticks out as the most bizarre funny. This girl, we'd been chatting for like a week or so, hit me up around 10 p.m. on a Sunday night and said she'd be in my neck of the woods on her way home and wanted to see if I wanted to hang out. I did. So she comes over, and she's got a bag of Mexican food with her. So I put on an episode of Always Sunny, and she busts out a monster bean and cheese burrito and a carne asada quesadilla. She asked if I wanted any, but I had already eaten. So this, skinny, mind you, girl puts down both of these fucking things in like 10 minutes. Just destroyed like 2 pounds of food. She wipes her face off, grabs my hand, rubs her tits with my hands, and gets up and goes, "Velp, I gotta go, you can tell your friends you at least got something out of it." Never to be seen again. I'm still in love with her. Didn't happen to me, but a friend of mine started hooking up with this girl on Tinder about 1.5 years ago. She wasn't very attractive, and he would always talk about how much he hated her, but I guess the sex was alright because he kept seeing her. About 2 months into this he decides he's going to end things with her and find a new fuck buddy. Well, he heads over to her house to break up with her and is instead greeted with the girl telling him that she is pregnant, and that it is his. First thing I tell him to do is to get a DNA test to make sure that it is in fact his kid. He insists that it is, and doesn't get the test. He convinces her to put the baby up for adoption, but she decides pretty late into the pregnancy that she doesn't want to give up the baby and wants to raise it. Fast forward to a month ago, and my friend is stuck raising this kid with this girl he doesn't like. Well, I guess she didn't actually put my buddy down as the father on the baby's birth certificate and had been collecting money from the government for being a single mother or something, and the government wanted her to try and track down the father. That is how my friend found out that he might not actually be the father of the baby he's been raising. Still haven't heard back on whether he is or is not the father, but I hope for his sake that he isn't. Still haven't heard back on whether he is or is not the father, but I hope for his sake that he isn't. I started talking to this really sweet guy for about 2 weeks and things were going well. Then I started getting calls from this girl, who he claimed was his crazy roommate that was in love with him and kept trying to get him fired from jobs. Turns out, she wasn't the one lying, she was actually his live-in girlfriend, and they had moved here together from a different state. Apparently he wasn't actually a citizen, and was trying to obtain papers. Thanks, Tinder. Started speaking to this guy on Tinder a few months ago. He seemed alright, but not my normal type. Regardless, we started speaking for a couple of days. I didn't realize how stupid I was until now, but I mentioned where I worked. The night I mentioned my workplace, I saw a guy walk past that looked a lot like him. I hadn't met him in person so I wasn't 100%. I forgot about it and a couple of days later, it was quiet in work but my phone battery was low. I said I'd speak to him later before my phone died. Him coming in 10 minutes later with a fucking iPhone charger. Yes, this might have been a nice gesture if you know, I'd actually met him face to face before. This was really weird because he said he lived the other side of the city from where I work. I wanted to cut ties straight away, but I thought I'd return the charger after I finished work. He said he would be in a bar around the corner, so when I finished I met up with him, gave him his charger and made some excuse to go home. To make it even scarier, for a good few weeks, every time I'd finish work I would see him casually walking past on his own, exactly at the time I finished. Really creeped me out for a while. This couldn't have been asked at a better time. Met a guy on Tinder after ending a 6-year relationship. He was in his last year of PT school and seemed to have his shit together and was really cool. I made it extremely clear that I was in no hurry to rush into a relationship and that I wanted to take my time get to know him better. We ended up dating some months later. Everything was great. I was actually really happy with him and was going to take him home for Christmas. We had been together about 6 months at this point. Last Monday, I got a Facebook message from a random girl. She basically said she matched with my BF on Tinder and found his Facebook account. She noticed that his Facebook noted that he was in a relationship with me, so she messaged me to see if we were in a relationship since they had plans for a date that week. She sent me screenshots of all of their conversations. Bless this little Tinder angel's heart for messaging me. Confront BF, go through phone, not like me, find extremely graphic sexual texts between him and at least 2 other girls besides Tinder girl. BF says he was so insecure and worried that I didn't want to be with him that he wanted this false security. Broke up with him. Got drinks with Tinder girl, we're friends now. Tinder date with a famous chef where I was taken to a dive bar, where he promptly started talking about how famous he was. We drank and watched sports. He proceeded to tell me you're cute and this eventually went to I am going to make you bleed. He then invited one of his friends to come along. I went outside and he came up to kiss me. I was drunk, so I kissed back. Eventually he proceeded to tell me how he was being charged with battering his ex-girlfriend, but he totally didn't do it. Eventually, when it came time to pay the bill, he lost his wallet. Of course, I get stuck with it. "I'll pay you back." Needless to say, I never got a payment. Then he leaned up against me. I thought he was trying to kiss me again, but I looked down, and he was peeing on me. In the street. Peeing. On. Me. I swiftly, being too inebriated to drive, went and got myself a hotel room and a hot shower. Never again. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. Please like and subscribe if you would like Reddit Station to keep posting similar stories. Subscribe to Reddit Station, baby.